Plywood is another everyday miracle, an extraordinary material story. Plywood is the culmination of one of our longest relationships with a material, wood. And its emergence has revolutionised design within the home. Traditionally, furniture was made from solid wood, and making it was the preserve of craftsmen. Ornate and intricate pieces were skillfully carved and assembled. But the properties of wood mean that the design and shape of objects made with it are limited. Plywood transforms ordinary wood into something utterly different. In an almost ludicrously simple process, it removes the limitations of wood completely. To see how plywood revolutionised the possibilities for furniture designers, I've come to Hackney in East London, home to one of the UK's oldest plywood furniture manufacturers, where original 1930s designs are still made from cut wood veneers. So is this basically just a big plank of wood that's been cut up? How do you make that?
Effectively, it's a tree that has been sliced against a knife, and in this particular case it's 1.5 millimetres. There's no loss of material, and it's all put back together in the same order, and this constitutes a whole tree. We're sticking it back together in the order in which it was sliced from the tree and producing laminated sections. In this particular case we have 1.5 mil birch veneer, and in a normal solid timber of this thickness you would not be able to bend that. Right. But because they're individually glued, put together in a stack, they will bend. And they'll even rotate.
Yeah, something
so
very
you can
beautiful
give
about
a
that,
twist in that, and it's all reliant on the glue. As the glue sets, it's a rigid glue, so it holds it in that way.
So I can see that if you don't get the glue right, then this whole thing will just unspring itself. Yeah. Because you're holding a tension, you're holding it in.
If you use a rubbery glue that does not set glass hard, this will eventually just come out and be an embarrassing collection of loose parts of veneer.
The glue is the key to creating plywood. Making curved furniture would be impossible without it. Each individual layer of veneer is coated with glue before being placed one on top of another. The whole stack is then put into a mould where it's bent into shape and left to set. The glue sets so hard that once the veneers are removed, they're locked into shape. And all that's left to do is to cut and finish the final piece. The furniture that plywood made possible was curved and contorted. When it was introduced in the 1930s, the use of wood in this way was considered controversial, and its appearance shocking. Since then, plywood furniture has redefined the boundaries of what is possible with wood, and it's become a common feature of modern homes. Plywood is not just useful because it's flexible and mouldable, it has another very useful property. Now take a look at just a normal plank of wood like this. If I put it between these two tables and get a 4 kilogram weight and drop it, it doesn't withstand that impact. And why is that? Well, because a plank of wood has a grain. So the grain was aligned along this direction of this gap, and so when the weight hit it, it split along the grain. So wood is strong in one direction and weak in another. Now plywood is little bits of ply, each one has a grain, and each one is actually very weak indeed. But if you crisscross the grains and glue them together like this, then actually what you build up is a piece of wood that's strong in all directions. Using 7 of these thin sheets, I've made my own piece of plywood. Each sheet has been glued together, alternating the grain direction each time, before being put into these clamps and left to set. The result is a piece of plywood that is the same thickness as my original piece of solid wood. Okay, so this is the ply. It's just crisscross, glued together. Now we'll do the same test on that. No problem at all. The glue bonds with the wood fibres and sets hard. And because the grain of each veneer runs perpendicular to the next, the weakness is removed. It's this that makes plywood incredibly strong and incredibly light when compared to natural wood. It's plywood's strength, flexibility and mouldability that's allowed it to have such a big impact on the world. And nothing encapsulates that more than this.
Enemy close, coming up.
When it entered service during the Second World War, the Mosquito was the fastest aircraft in the world. And the secret to its success was that it was made almost entirely of plywood. By using plywood, the precisely shaped aerodynamic wing could be made in one single piece. What's more, the plywood's stressed skin gave the wing enormous strength, reducing the need for heavy internal bracing and making it incredibly light. The fuselage was moulded in two halves, and the whole thing was then assembled and glued together like a model aircraft. The result was an airplane that was cheap and easy to produce, but with a top speed of over 400 miles per hour. And all because of the remarkable properties of plywood.